Hi, in this video I'm going to be covering our CSM 6.3 release. It's a brand new release to come out at the end of July of 2021, and I'll go over it now. So basically what I'll do is I'll do a quick overview of the product again, so any of you that don't know CSM, don't know about CSM, I'll give you a brief overview, and then I'll go into what's new. Alright, so what is CSM? Well, CSM is kind of your one-stop shop for storage replication needs. We're very easy to install, easy to set up, and easy to manage. So all of your DS8000 or Spectrum or Flash system products, we manage the replication for. So that's Metro Mirror to Flash copy, to safeguarded copy, to global mirror, to 2-site, 3-site, etc. CSM will help you with all that. We install basically anywhere. You can install this on Windows, Linux, AIX, Linux for Z systems, on the Z system itself, and now we've even pre-installed on DS8000 HMCs. We cover disaster recovery and high availability, so that's both for the Z hyperswap kind of solutions or Power HA hyperswap solutions. We have practice, what we call practice sessions that allow you to practice the way you would in the actual disaster. And we have various ways to protect your data, from warning prompts to user roles to site awareness, etc. So a whole gambit of stuff that CSM provides you for your replication environment. All right, so what's in CS 6.3.0? Well, first I'll start with, yes, we finally changed. We've been running with and releasing 6.2 versions for quite a while. And now we've upped the release level to 3, so now we have a 6.3 release. We'll still, same old CSM, same old kind of, we'll look at all the RFPs as we go along, and then we'll release this hopefully quarterly, but sometimes a little bit longer than that, but for the most part there will be multiple releases a year. All that stays the same, but we're now under 6.3 release. Here's a quick list of what's new and changed. And I'll go into each of those individually now. All right, the first change I'm going to talk about in 6.3 is our health overview panel. As you can see, we've changed the look and feel of it. The health overview panel is designed and still the same to be your first entry into the CSM. So as soon as you log in, you'll see the health overview panel. And it's going to give you some status information across the various aspects of the server itself. So the session health, what's normal, how many are normal, how many warning severe, the connections to the storage systems, connections to your ZOS systems, and connections to your active and standby servers. So you'll see all that. That's all still the same, but we've added some additional information. So you'll see in that top pod there, we now added some counts for different volumes and different roles that are being used and managed by the CSM server. So for example, we'll give you the number of remote copy source volumes. That's not the cascaded ones, but the main source volumes. Number of flash copy source volumes, number of safeguard protected volumes, and number of volumes being used as targets. In addition, we'll total up that source data replicated to give you a size of the idea of how much data has been being replicated in your environment by this CSM server. In addition, in the storage system pod, you'll see the number of volumes we have listed in sessions, not in sessions, and total volumes found across all the storage systems that are connected to this CSM server. So the hope is to give you a little bit of some idea of what's being managed, what's being handled within this environment, as well as potentially, hey, maybe you expected to have more volumes being in sessions and they're not. Something may be wrong. Maybe you can go figure out why they're not all being replicated. So this is the new health overview panel. Interesting feedback. Hopefully it provides you some of the information that you've been asking for in that RFP that's listed there. All right, the next feature is what we call the ResumeGM command. So we actually introduced the ResumeGM command a few releases back with the DS8000 solution that allows for a cascaded global mirror environment. Where your the cascaded global mirror is into a bunker site where you can do some safeguarded copy backups. So what does the ResumeGM command do? It is only available while you're in a suspended state. But what it does is it does essentially the same as the start command, but it skips all the additional checks that CSM usually does for the start. So when you issue a start command, CSM will go and look at the pathing. We'll go look and the actual failed over, failed back states of the relationships, all that kind of stuff, so that we can issue the right command. ResumeGM, it will simply call the hardware's master for the global mirror environment, and then the master will restart all the pairs and then restart consistency group formation. So you should only use this command in the cases where you're pausing temporarily and you want to restart fast, right? So these are cases like where you're taking a safeguarded copy backup at the remote site, or you are taking a flash copy at the remote site. So you want to do that pause, flash, or backup, and then restart real quickly. ResumeGM command will get you your CG formations going much faster than the start command will. If, though, you've done any recovers, if you've added copy sets while suspended, if you've done any of that stuff, do not use the ResumeGM command. Please use the start command, because that's going to do everything you need to do to make sure things are started correctly there. And so we introduced in 6.2.10 this for a regular global mirror failover failback session. Now in the 6.3 release, we've opened it up to all the sessions that have DS8000 global mirror supported, so that you can implement that in various backup or flash modes that you may need through either manually or more likely a scheduled task or script that will drive that ResumeGM command. All right, the next one I'm going to talk about is a request from some mainframe customers where they wanted to see the actual device number for volumes that are managed through CSM. So for the longest time, CSM has shown both the full name of the volume. So this is essentially the LSS and the volume ID. So if the LSS 0, it's 00, volume ID is 0, it's 00. So first line there, you see it's 0000. And we also showed the user-defined name, which in mainframe cases is typically your Volsair. So we showed that information in the two columns, but what customers really told us and gave us feedback is when they do mainframe actions, they're really looking at device numbers such as 0fox60, 0fox61, etc. So we worked with the iOS team on ZOS, and when you set up a IP to Z connection, or you're running on Z, and we're communicating through ZOS with the code on the iOS team, when we discover volumes, we will also discover the device number. So now you'll see under the volumes panel, you'll be able to add a column, unhide a column, show the device number, such as Fox60, Fox61, or in various places where you're doing pop-ups of the volume information, add copy set wizard, for example, or just the copy set panel, or a view of the copy sets within a session. Those will start showing you that device information. So the hope is that this will help you coordinate between what's in the session and what's actually on the hardware, and those actions that you do to make sure things are actually correct and that you're issuing to the right volumes. All right, the next one is related to a customer that had a very large configuration, but they had a lot of security rules, so they had to change the passwords to those storage systems quite frequently. And because they had a huge configuration, when those passwords changed, they had to go to CSM and change every single connection to those storage systems to make sure that they match the actual changed password. As you can imagine, this could be quite cumbersome. And so what we did was created a REST API for them to go along with also the existing change MC, change master console command we had it already in the CLI, but with the REST API they can implement it in their automation so that they can then go and make sure that everything is changed to the correct password. So this lets you change it even though you already have a connection to the hardware. You can change it on the fly using your automation. And you know, I mean, it's secure still because you still need a user ID and password to make the change, so you have to have that administrator access into CSM to make the change, but we allow you to do it through that automation now. All right, for the next one, this is a big change for CSM. For a long time now, we've had support for Metro Global Mirror and Metro Global Mirror Practice. Those are cascaded solutions, so you have a Metro Mirror relationship and then cascaded Global Mirror off of that to get to a 3-site configuration. And then when the DS8000 came out with multi-target support, we added another slew of session types for multi-target type replication. So instead of cascading the relationships, from the same source, you have multiple targets, giving you that multi-target configuration. So I think now we have three main multi-target 3-site solutions, and then we have the 4-site, etc. So what we had was a request. We've had a couple of requests, but the first one that we're focusing on here is a customer wanted to be able to convert from their multi-target configuration to a cascaded configuration so that they could get that 0 RPO data and do some testing on the H3 site, even though they, for the most part, wanted to run in a multi-target mode. So they wanted to go to cascading and then back to multi-target. Our CSM session, the MGM sessions today didn't support hardware multi-target, still don't, but the multi-target session also didn't support cascaded. So what we did was add in the ability to convert it on the fly. So after you have a multi-target session, you can now issue a start H1, H2, H3 command that will get you into a cascaded mode without the need of a full copy. So the first thing I want to mention is, in order to go from multi-target to cascaded, you have to suspend at least the global mirror leg. So you have to tell us essentially, hey, I'm about to convert. So you'll suspend that global mirror leg, and then at that time you'll see the start H1, H2, H3 command, as well as the start H1, H2, and start H1, H3 command. And then, so if you issue the start H1, H2, H3, we will then convert it so that now you're doing that the cascaded leg as the picture shows. So the top picture is your multi-target, middle picture is the command prompt that now shows H1, H2, H3, and the bottom screen is where you end up in a cascaded environment. From cascaded environment, then you can actually issue a start H1, H2, H1, H3 back to get to a multi-target environment. You don't have to do a suspend in that case because there's no pausing of global mirror that we need to do to wait for and all. So you can go straight back to a multi-target command that gets you into that configuration. So that covers the command base. You can do this from the site 1 or site 2. Either way is supported. And you can also, if you want, take an existing MGM configuration, so that's existing cascaded session, and move it to, migrate it to a multi-target session by doing the remove copy sets, keep on hardware, and then adding those copy sets into the multi-target MMGM session. That matches what you were doing with MGM. And then start managing cascaded relationships from the multi-target session. What advantages do you have of this? Well, there's a few. One is that when you actually recover to site 2 in a multi-target configuration, in multi-target session, this multi-target session does actually support the multi-target stuff on the hardware, the bitmaps on the hardware. So when you start from that failed over, or you swap to that H2 site, we can now start back from 2 to 1 directly with a failback. Those are used MGM today with the cascaded solution. You'll know that because it doesn't do multi-target, when you start from H2, we actually have to do this whole round robin thing where we copy the data from 2 to 3, each site 3 to site 1, before we can force failback to from site 2 to site 1. So now this simplifies things drastically. We can take advantage of the multi-target capabilities, start 2 to 3 directly and start 2 to 1 directly to get multi-target, or then go from that configuration to 2, 1, 3 cascade if you want. So you'll see simplification there and a lot of the steps between site switching. The other benefit is that the multi-target sessions, because it can take advantage of that, the multi-target bitmaps on the hardware, in the majority of the cases when you recover to H3, when you start back from Site 3, you will not have to do a full copy. The MGM sessions today do a full copy because of the bitmaps and the hardware aren't there, but with multi-target you don't have that. And so this covers the other RFE that's listed there, so that now by moving this MGM to a multi-target session, even if you don't plan to use multi-target configuration, you want to stay in cascaded, could benefit you by that Site 3. So hopefully you can take advantage of this. It may even come handy for some kind of migration cases we thought about the other day. If you're multi-target configuration, you want to migrate to a new set of hardware, you can actually convert to a cascaded so that you can set up a multi-target off your source to your new environment. Whereas today with multi-target, you wouldn't be able to do that because you have a limit of 2 targets for each source. So hopefully that made sense. I know there's a lot of complex stuff in that, but we're excited about this change and hope you can take advantage of it. All right, the last one here I want to talk about is a big one that we've been working on for a while with the DS8000 team, and that's our support for the safeguarded copy restore to production. So this is available on the DS89F 9.2 release, and the idea is essentially to be able to take your backup recovery and then do a global copy of that back incrementally to the remote site of your remote copy relationship. So take the top picture. That was a lot of words. So take the top picture. We have a RS to RS2 metro mirror, global mirror type relationship. So off of RS2 is where you're taking your safeguarded copies. So you're taking backup, backup, backup. Your problem today is if you want to restore from those backups, it's a full copy to get it back to your main production site, which is RS1. And so what this solution is doing is allowing you to take that recovery relationship and incrementally copy it back to RS1. So now it's much faster restore process back to your original production. We support this in basically all our sessions types. If you're aware of CSM, our safeguarded copy session is just manages safeguarded copy. We decided not to create canned remote copy with safeguarded copy sessions because it allows customers to build their own solutions based off of the different copy types they want using scheduled tasks. So we can still do this, but we needed a mechanism to tie a particular session a little bit closer to the safeguarded copy session so that we could do that incremental fallback. How do we do this? Well, if you watched my last video in 6.2.12, we actually introduced the ability to associate sessions, a safeguarded copy session to another session. What that 6.2.12 release did was first compare the volumes to make sure that all the volumes are the same, so that if the volumes weren't the same, you get a warning. Well, we've expanded on that, and now you can actually specify which volume in that other session is tied to this safeguarded copy source, and which volume you want to restore on that other session. So with that last question added, you can now say, hey, I want to restore such and such volume in that session when I do the restore command. All right, so this is a basic slide for a bunch of setups. So basically what you want to do is you're going to associate the sessions. You're going to do the suspend of the associated session. That's a remote copy relationship. Then you're going to recover the backup. So you want to recover it so that you can test and make sure that's the backup you want. You might have to do multiple recovers until you find the right backup that's not corrupted. Then you're going to do the restore process. So instead of going through that deeper, let me actually go through a demo for you. All right, so here I have 2 sessions, one the metro mirror session and one the safeguarded copy session. So you see that in this particular case, if I view the copy sets, what I'm doing is going from the OFOX00 is my H1 volume My H2 volume is 0600. So now if I go to my safeguarded copy session, you'll see that the safeguarded copy source is 0600, which is that same as the Metro Mirror target in the other session we just looked at. So now I'm going to go to my safeguarded copy session, and I already did the association, but I'll show you. You're going to click this. Usually I'll say no association. You'll click this. You'll find the session you want to associate, and then you're going to answer the question. So the first is which is the role pair in the session you clicked above that's associated to this safeguarded copy session. And in this case, there's only one role pair because it's a Metro Mirror session. It's H1, H2. But you might be doing this for a Metro Global Mirror session or a multi-target session. You might be doing it off the H1, H2 leg of that or the H1, H3 leg of that. You'll be able to specify that here. All right, the next question is which role in the selected role pair is the H1 volume of the session. So as I showed you before, 0600 is my safeguarded copy source. So that is the H2 role in the Metro Mirror session. So there's that right there. And the last one is which role in that other session is the one I want to restore. And H1 is my primary on that Metro Mirror relationship, so H1 is the one I want to restore. I'll save that. You'll see that associated session here. You'll see the role pair, role to restore, etc. So step one is basically to be, you notice there's corruption, something's going on, you need to suspend that session. You want to stop updates and from going from the source to the target, get that session suspended. Next step is to go into your safeguarded copy session and actually go through all your backups. So say I had a bunch of backups here, I'm going to want to recover the backups and analyze those backups first. So you don't want to, remember you're restoring to your production volume, so you want to make extra sure that what you're restoring, the data that you're restoring is the data that you want. So you'll do the recovery, you'll recover that backup to your R1 volumes defined by your safeguarded copy session. These R1 06 Fox is my R1 in this case. He has the data, do whatever process you need to do to validate that data, and then while you're in that target available session, now you will see a restore backup command. So as I issue that, it's going to tell me I'm going to restore those H1 volumes in that MM session that we just suspended to that backup time, and it's going to overwrite that data. So make sure that this is what you want to do, because again, you're restoring to that production environment. I'm going to say yes, and this is going to go through a number of steps now defined by this. So basically, I click the restore. What I'm doing is first I'm going to validate that the other session is suspended. So if it's not suspended, you'll get an error. You'll have to go suspend that role pair and then issue the restore again. Then the code, if it is suspended, the code will do a failover of that relationship in that other session with some special bits that allow it to set up for this incremental resync back. Then it will re-recover that data, that backup data to the R1 volumes. So take note that if you did the recover before, if you manipulated that volume at all, and none of that manipulation will be restored to your production volume. We are only restoring the actual data that's in the backup, so we will re-recover to those R1s, and then we will restore that data to your production. So the hardware has to do some stuff under the covers with preparing that restore, so you'll see us going to a restoring state at that point and checking on the hardware for when it is ready to do that failback. Once it's ready, we will internally CSM will be in the restoring state. You won't see much. You'll see us have some statuses, but essentially it'll fail back that from that R1 volume to your RS1 volume, to the H1 relationship, H1 role in that Metro Mirror session. Then we will monitor that failback, and once that failback is complete, once that ooze is completed, and remember that's an incremental resync, so it should not be a full copy anymore with this setup. and we'll incrementally resync that relationship. Should be fairly quick, depending on the amount of backup, how far behind that backup is from your source production data, and how much I/O has happened since then. And then once that's complete, we will go delete the recovery relationship. The H1 volume and that metro mirror session is now restored, and your session will go, your safeguarded copy session will go into the protected state. So now you no longer have a recovery relationship and in that safeguarded copy session, but you still have all your backups. None of the backups got manipulated. All the backups are still there. However, in my metro mirror session, you'll see he's failed over, but the H1 volumes have been restored. So now I can simply do a start again if I want to restart replication once I've brought back production to that new image. All right, so hopefully that made sense. Hopefully this is a big improvement for a lot of you to allow you to be able to restore that data. I know having the backup's one thing, but restoring is a completely different thing. So with CSM 6.3 and DS8000 R92, hopefully you'll have this solution there. All right, that comes to the end of my 6.3 presentation. Here's some useful links, Knowledge Center, our support matrix, downloads, etc. As always, please, if you see something you want, open an RFE. We look at those constantly. We look at votes, so vote for RFEs as well, so that we can decide pretty agilely which of the RFEs and which things we need to implement based off the customer needs. So now, with this said, we're releasing 6.3, as I mentioned, end of July 2021, but we actually have a release coming in August, a fix pack for a feature that it will be related to your flash system. So a lot of this is DS8000 oriented. Rest assured, flash system customers, something's coming that's exciting for you. You may already know that. I can't talk about it now, but it's coming in August with flash system support. That's the plan anyway, and we will look forward to having another video for you on that feature coming up. So thank you for your time, and take care.